Have you ever felt a strange emptiness after doing everything right? Have you ever followed the rules, achieved approval, made safe decisions, and still felt powerless? Imagine this. You're standing at the edge of a cliff, looking out over a vast wilderness. Behind you is a walled city familiar, structured, safe. In front of you, the unknown. The wind tastes like danger. Your heartbeat is louder than your thoughts. You've spent your whole life walking paved roads, and now there's only raw terrain. No signs, no handrails, no instructions. Just possibility and risk. And something inside you wants to turn back. Not because you're weak, but because everything you've been taught told you that safety is survival. That caution is wisdom. That power real, untamed, sovereign power is dangerous, selfish, even immoral. And so we build our lives like fortresses, brick by brick, with jobs we don't love, relationships that don't challenge us, routines that slowly anesthetize the soul. We tell ourselves we are being responsible, that we are protecting ourselves. But what if that very protection is the prison? What if the walls we build to keep ourselves safe are the same walls that keep our true self buried alive? Friedrich Nietzsche once wrote, "The secret of realizing the greatest fruitfulness and the greatest enjoyment of existence is to live dangerously." But who dares to live dangerously in a world obsessed with guarantees? Who dares to walk away from comfort, not because it failed, but because it succeeded too well in keeping us numb? Have you ever noticed how quickly society rewards obedience and how ruthlessly it punishes rebellion? Not the loud kind, but the quiet rebellion of becoming truly free, of speaking when it's inconvenient, of walking alone when the crowd feels warm, of desiring more than just pleasure, but meaning, power, truth. Most people don't reject freedom. They simply trade it for familiarity. They don't hate power. They just fear the isolation it requires. Because here's the paradox. The more you awaken, the less you belong. The more you grow, the lonelier the path becomes. And so, people shrink not because they're blind, but because they're scared. Scared to confront their own potential. Scared to claim the authority that would make them responsible for their lives. So they hide behind ideologies, behind routines, behind screens and substances and endless distractions. They call it peace, but it's sedation. They call it love, but it's dependency. They call it virtue, but it's fear with a mask. What if everything we call a normal life is just a sophisticated form of submission? And what if the voice inside you, the one that aches when you lie to yourself, isn't broken, but brave? What if the pain you feel isn't weakness, but the soul demanding to be unchained? We were not born to be tame. We were born to stand on that cliff and step forward, to walk into the unknown and claim the power that comfort will never give. But to do that, you must first understand the force that keeps you frozen. The hidden enemy that whispers, "Stay where it's safe. Don't be too much. Don't think too deeply." That force has a name, and it's more ancient, more seductive, and more invisible than you think. Let's find it. The real reason most people choose safety over power is not weakness. It's conditioning, not the loud, obvious kind, but the subtle, invisible scripting that begins the moment we're born. You're not told to be powerful. You're told to be good, to be manageable, to be liked. From the classroom to the office, from religion to romance, you are rewarded for fitting in, not for standing out. You're praised for restraint, not ambition. You're applauded for self-denial, not self-expression. And the more you follow these unspoken rules, the more they bury you, until the part of you that once screamed for freedom learns to whisper, until it forgets how to speak altogether. Nietzsche called this the morality of the herd, a value system built by the weak, for the weak, in the name of peace. He believed most people don't truly live, they obey. They don't seek truth, they inherit it. They don't create values, they recycle them. And so their lives become pale imitations of what could have been. Because society doesn't want you powerful. It wants you polite, predictable, profitable. Safe people are easy to manage. But powerful people are unpredictable. They question, they break patterns, they wake others up. And that makes them dangerous. So from a young age, power is recast as arrogance. Ambition is labeled selfish. Individuality becomes rebellion, and rebellion becomes sin. This is not just philosophy, it's psychology. Carl Jung warned us about the danger of repression. He said that everything we repress doesn't disappear, it hides in the shadow. And the more we push away our hunger for freedom, the more it returns as anxiety, depression, or self-sabotage. We don't just fear power. We fear what claiming it might reveal about us. What if we're not as good as we pretend to be? What if our real desires don't fit the story we've been living? What if becoming powerful means disappointing everyone who loved us for being small? So we stay safe, not because it fulfills us, but because it protects our persona. That fragile mask we wear to avoid rejection. But here's the truth. The longer you wear the mask, the more you forget what's underneath. And then, slowly, the mask wears you. Schopenhauer said, "A man can do what he wills, but he cannot will what he wills." You may want to be free, but if your will has been molded by fear, you will only choose the illusion of freedom choices within the cage. This is why safety feels like a virtue. It's not. It's just a habit. A pattern inherited from centuries of domesticated minds. And every system, be it political, religious, or social, has a stake in keeping you asleep. Because the moment you awaken, you become a threat. Not with violence, but with vision. Because nothing is more revolutionary than a human being who is no longer afraid to be themselves. But before that awakening comes a war. An inner war. Between the voice that says, "Stay safe," and the whisper that says, "There's more." Between the mask and the mirror. Between obedience and truth. And the battleground is your own psyche. Every compromise you make for comfort strengthens the enemy. Every time you silence yourself to maintain peace, you feed the very system that keeps you powerless. But here's the twist. That system doesn't live outside of you. It lives within. It's the voice that criticizes your ambition, that downplays your achievements, that calls your truth too much. It's not your enemy, it's your training. A psychological scar passed down through generations who are taught to survive by submitting. And if you don't confront it, you'll pass it on too. Not in words, but in choices. In the energy you carry. In the dreams you don't pursue. In the limits you accept as realistic. You can't escape this conditioning by wishing it away. You have to face it, name it, and dismantle it piece by piece. Only then can power become an option. Only then can your will be truly your own. But first, you must understand just how deep the trap goes. Because this isn't just about ideas. It's about consequences. Real ones. The kind that shape generations. And in the next chapter, you'll see what happens when a life is built on fear disguised as logic, on comfort disguised as love. You'll see how the cost of safety is everything that ever made you alive. You don't feel the chains because they're invisible. You don't notice the weight because you've carried it your whole life. It's not the pain that traps you, it's the numbness. The quiet, suffocating dullness of a life lived too safely. You wake up. You follow the routine. You check your phone. You go to work. You laugh when you're supposed to. You agree to things you don't care about. You scroll. You shop. You consume. You survive. And somewhere along the way, you stop asking why. You stop noticing that your days blur together like copies of the same lie. Because the system doesn't need you to be happy. It just needs you to keep going, to keep producing, to keep pretending, to keep saying, "I'm fine," when you're anything but. And slowly, your soul begins to starve. Not for food, not for comfort, but for meaning, for fire, for something real. But instead, you're offered substitutes. Entertainment becomes your religion. Distraction becomes your drug. Mediocrity becomes your identity. And the scariest part is it works. For a while, the dopamine hits keep you just alive enough. The validation keeps you just seen enough. The comfort keeps you just numb enough. Until one day, you can't remember what it felt like to be wild, to feel your blood burn with possibility, to speak without censoring your soul, to walk without needing permission. And this is where the true tragedy unfolds. Because the longer you live this way, the more you forget that there was ever an alternative. You stop believing in the cliff. You stop imagining the wilderness. You become convinced that the walls around you are the whole world, that the silence inside you is peace, that safety is the goal. But safety is not neutral. It costs you something. It costs you your instincts, your intuition, your edge, your voice, your will, and above all, it costs you your truth. You begin to shrink, not physically, but spiritually. Your decisions become smaller. Your dreams become more polite. Your thoughts become filtered, softened, made socially acceptable. And you start to disappear inside yourself. Cognitive dissonance sets in. You smile, but you're empty. You succeed, but you feel hollow. You're surrounded, but you feel alone. And you don't know why. Because no one ever told you that living a lie can look exactly like success. You're not being punished, you're being sedated. Conditioned to fear your own power, you start fearing anyone who embodies it. You judge the bold, you mock the brave. You label the free as reckless, because their existence reminds you of everything you buried. And so the cycle repeats. Society breeds safety, and safety breeds conformity. And conformity kills truth. Not all at once, but slowly, through quiet compromises, through fake smiles and unspoken dreams, through decisions made from fear, not desire. And in the end, the world doesn't have to silence you. You'll do it yourself. You'll clip your own wings and call it maturity. You'll dim your own light and call it humility. You'll abandon your own truth and call it love. But make no mistake, there is a cost, and it shows in the epidemic of depression, in the rise of anxiety, in the endless consumption of meaningless content, in the loneliness that haunts people even when they're never alone. This is not accidental. This is not random. This is the price of choosing safety over power, of choosing obedience over authenticity, of choosing to feel okay instead of truly alive. But here's the part they never tell you. You can wake up. You can walk away, not from the world, but from the version of yourself that agreed to live half dead. But to do that, you'll have to rebel. You'll have to confront every belief that taught you to shrink. You'll have to betray the identity built on silence. You'll all have to stop playing the role of the good one and start becoming the real one. And that begins with a decision to stop surviving and start remembering. Remembering the cliff, the wilderness, the fire in your blood, and the voice inside you that never wanted a safe life. It wanted a true one. Rebellion doesn't start with a protest. It starts in the quiet, brutal moment you decide to stop lying to yourself. The moment you stop pretending that numbness is peace. That control is confidence. That comfort is love. You sit alone in a room, and for the first time, you hear the question echo, what do I really want outside of what I've been told to want? And that question is dangerous, because it unravels everything. It burns through the fake smiles, the borrowed beliefs, the curated identity you've spent years performing. It tears the mask from your face, even if the mask is all you've ever known. And beneath it, something stirs, not a persona, not a brand, but a will. A raw, ancient will that remembers what it means to choose. Nietzsche called this the will to power, not domination over others, but dominion over the self. Not ego, but authenticity without apology. Not rebellion for rebellion's sake, but the refusal to live beneath your potential. And here's the paradox. The path to power doesn't feel like power at first. It feels like breaking. It feels like loss. Loss of false certainty. Loss of people who only loved your silence. Loss of the old identity that kept you safe, small, invisible. But in that loss is resurrection. Because when you finally stop playing the game, you start playing for your soul. And the rules are different. You stop negotiating with your truth to make others comfortable. You stop betraying yourself just to be liked. You stop mistaking obedience for loyalty. You stop choosing guilt over growth. And you begin to walk awkwardly, painfully into the unknown. You speak your truth and lose people. You take risks and fail publicly. You disappoint others and feel the shame surge like fire through your chest. But you don't run from it anymore. You sit in it. You let it burn away the false self. You let it show you what you were protecting, your image, your safety, your place in the herd. And then one day, the shame doesn't control you, because you've looked it in the eye and lived. That is power. Not the absence of fear, but the refusal to bow to it. Not control over others, but mastery over your own damn soul. And from that place, everything changes. You stop reacting. You start responding. You stop seeking validation. You start radiating truth. And people feel it. They may not like it, but they feel it. Because you've become what the system fears, a human being who is no longer afraid to exist fully. A sovereign individual. Unowned, uncompromising, unapologetically awake. This is not a performance. It's not an aesthetic. It's a war you win by refusing to abandon yourself, no matter the cost. And you will lose things. You will lose illusions. You will lose approval. You will lose the love that depended on your silence. But what you gain is something they can never take. Your inner authority. Your ability to stand alone without collapsing. Your truth raw, unfiltered, indivisible. That is rebellion. Not noise, not slogans, but a presence that can't be manipulated. A mind that can't be bought. A soul that can't be sedated. And here is the truth no one will tell you. Freedom is not something you ask for. It's something you take back with every honest word, with every sacred no, with every risk you take to live aligned with what is real. The world will not hand you this. It will fight you, mock you, tempt you back into comfort. But if you hold the line, if you stay loyal to your own becoming, you will rise. Not above others, but above the version of yourself that once mistook survival for life. And that's where power begins, not in domination, but in liberation of the only thing that was ever yours, your will. There is a moment after the war, when the dust settles, when the noise fades, and you're left standing in the quiet of your own becoming. No applause, no audience, just you, raw, real, remembered. And in that moment, something ancient returns to you. Not a thought, not a feeling, but a knowing that you were never meant to live half alive, that your pain was not a punishment, it was a call, that your longing was not a weakness, it was a map, that every moment you felt different, too intense, too much, was proof you are not designed for the cage. You were born to burn, to pierce through illusion, to walk naked into the wilderness of your own truth. And what they called dangerous was sacred. What they called selfish was sovereign. What they called rebellion was resurrection. You begin to see it now. The system never hated power. It just hated you having it. Because a powerful individual doesn't obey. They don't beg. They don't break at the sight of disapproval. They don't worship comfort. They walk through fire with their head held high and say, "I would rather die standing than live kneeling." And that terrifies a world built on submission. But here's the most haunting truth of all. No one was ever stopping you. Not really. The chains were always internal. The permission was always yours. The door was never locked. You were just waiting for someone to save you. But the savior you needed was the version of you that finally stopped waiting. That rose, that roared, that remembered who the hell they were before the world taught them to forget. And now you are that version. Scarred, but sovereign. Exiled, but free. Alone, but never lost. Because you've stopped asking the world for answers. You've stopped outsourcing your power. You've stopped making yourself digestible for people who were never hungry for the truth. And now you see clearly, this was never about becoming someone else. It was about unbecoming everything you were never meant to be. Every label, every role, every lie, earned away in the fire of your awakening. And what remains is not perfect. It's not polished. It's not palatable, but it is real. And in a world drowning in illusion, real is revolutionary. So here you are, not safe, but alive, not accepted, but whole, not popular, but powerful. And that is the final truth. Freedom was never a place you reached. It was the moment you stopped running from yourself. It was the breath you took when you spoke the truth, even with a shaking voice. It was the silence you embraced instead of begging to be seen. It was the strength to say, "If my power makes you uncomfortable, that's your mirror, not my muzzle." And now you know the greatest act of power is not control. It is presence. It is alignment. It is the refusal to vanish just to make others feel safe. So don't go back to sleep. Don't shrink to fit their comfort zone. Don't dim your flame to warm their smallness. Because the world doesn't need more obedient souls. It needs more warriors of the self. And your rebellion you're becoming might just be the permission someone else needed to wake up. So walk forward, head high, voice steady, and let your very existence become a revolution.